Okay, so what I'm going to do today is something a little bit different from what I've been doing recently with my channel, and I want to do a little tutorial video specifically on how to draw dinosaurs, because as a kid, I always loved to draw dinosaurs, during school and whatever, and I feel like I'm qualified enough to be able to teach at least some, like, basic beginner kind of tips for drawing dinosaurs. Full disclaimer, I'm not a professional artist, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a couple of my artworks here on the screen, and then, if you can draw better than that already, maybe you don't really have to listen to this advice. But if you can't draw that well, then maybe this video might help you with drawing dinosaurs in the future. So, I want to get started. What we're going to do today is we're going to do a simple side profile view of a T-Rex. And as I'm going through the drawing, I'll kind of explain, my tips and like kind of common beginner mistakes that, are things that I used to do when I was drawing dinosaurs. And so, yeah, let's get into it. So first, the basic thing that I would start with when drawing a dinosaur is the body. It's really important when drawing a dinosaur to get your proportions right. And so what I would recommend, if you're doing like a side profile or something, use reference images, right? Like, obviously, if you're, used to drawing dinosaurs and you already know all the proportions and everything, you don't need to use a reference image. But I would recommend, looking at the skeleton of a dinosaur and kind of judging from that, figuring out the proportions and all the correct stuff. Because one of the things I often see with beginner artists is they don't really know the kind of basic proportions of a dinosaur, and that ends up leading to some dinosaurs that look a bit wonky. So I'm going to go over kind of basic proportions for my T-Rex here. So I like to begin with a head, as I already drew on the paper. Start with a simple shape. It doesn't really have to represent what the head really looks like. It's just to give you kind of a baseline. And then you go with the spinal cord. And then what I like to do is I would add the arms. So the arms tend to be, so here I drew a rib cage, right? This here is kind of the main body of my dinosaur. And the arms of your dinosaur tend to be in the very front. They come out like backwards one little bit, and then they go out to the side, down like this. And then for a T-Rex, you've got two fingers. And so it's going to look something like that. And then I would draw the legs of your dinosaur. So here, generally you start near the top of the spine, and then you go down with one segment here. Then you'd go backwards with another segment here, and then forwards again. So it's like a forwards, backwards, forwards type motion. And then that's kind of going off my page. So I'm going to adjust where I'm drawing here. And then you can put your foot down on the bottom here. And what's important to keep in mind is that generally speaking, these two segments here are going to be the same size. And then you've got this little shorter bit on the bottom. And then you've got your foot here. So now that we have that down, you can also do the back legs. Generally, when I'm doing a side profile, I like to keep them pretty much together. If you want to draw walking or something, you can, and you would, it kind of move around the legs a little bit. But for my side profiles, this is generally how I draw them, kind of like this, like at a slight angle. Just like one slightly in front. The back legs are going to be slightly in front of the front legs there. And so now I would move on to adding some meat to the dinosaur. So on top of the spine, you're not going to be adding a lot when it comes to, like kind of thickness on the top. But on the bottom here, you're going to be adding like a big, like chunky neck, and then this is for a more realistic dinosaur. If you want to draw a skinnier one, more Jurassic Parkified, maybe, maybe it won't be this fat. But I like to draw my dinosaurs like nice and with like, a decent amount of actual flesh on them. And so then this would So one thing about the back, so when we're talking about behind the legs here, it tends to go upwards like this, and then back like that. So you can see here, and this I actually want to change a little bit, make it a little bit higher so that my tail is just generally a little bit thicker there. So I'll just get my eraser and erase that bit. And so this is like kind of a good baseline, I think, starting for our T-Rex drawing here. And so you can see here, like with some basic proportions, you got a big head in the front, you got the neck, the body, so one advice that I would like to, give you is some proportions for like the legs and the arms, because I think those are really important. I think a lot of people mess them up. So first of all, legs and the arms are quite far apart. You can see there's a very big distance between them. You don't want your legs and arms to be really close to each other. I see that a lot with like beginners. They put the legs and the arms really close to each other, and it always ends up looking really weird. So here you can see I've given a lot of space in between our legs and our arms. Another thing is that basically the first joint of the leg kind of reaches down like and around to the bottom of the belly here, right? Like I would say that's like the general length of a dinosaur leg. Like it might go slightly under, it might be slightly over, depending on like what angle you're drawing it at. But generally speaking, you want your top leg kind of bone here to, like, you want your knee to be kind of where the stomach is. And it's not like a human, like if I were to just draw a little human right here, right? Like a human, you've got like kind of this going on, and then your legs, like your knees are really far down from your waist. But here you can see that the legs come out from the sides here, like from the top, and then they go here. So like on a human, right, our knees are really far down, but on a dinosaur, its knee is going to be right where its stomach is. So yeah, that's one thing that I would like to say. And so yeah, I think we can get on to a little bit more details. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase some of these lines that I made here just to make this easier for me. Okay, so like so. Right now we have a good like kind of dinosaur template, right? You can see already it looks like a dinosaur, like that's the shape of a dinosaur, right? And so now let's start with the head. Okay, so the head, like I would just say, you know, for a beginner, you would probably want to use a reference if you don't know the shape of the head. So for a T-Rex, what happens basically, you got this like kind of bump here, you got a bump over the eye, like so. I would say the eye is like kind of around here, like that. And then, so basically the front of the mouth of a T-Rex, if you were to look at a skull, there's a kind of a little bit flat part, it goes down, and then it's gonna go up. And this up portion here is gonna end like right underneath the eye, and then it's gonna go down again, and then you're gonna end up with like this. So you get like that kind of a shape, and then for me, I want to draw it with its mouth a little bit open. So what we're gonna do here is it's gonna look something like this, like so, okay? And so you draw the bottom jaw. Remember not to make the bottom jaw either too thin or too thick. Like give it like a decent amount of meat, but also like not really big, because the bottom jaw is a lot smaller than the top jaw. So here, that's kind of what I would say is the basic shape of a T-Rex head. Depending on how you're drawing it, some people draw it a little bit taller, some people draw it a little bit thinner. I kind of like these proportions here. And so your nostril, like the little nose hole, is going to be like right in the front over there of the snout. And so now we've got our kind of basic T-Rex shape. So I don't want to do too much detail on this, but I would say what I would recommend, since we're drawing a realistic one, we're not doing the Jurassic Park one, is that T-Rex has two big knobs, kind of, and they kind of go on top of the eye like so. And then you've got a couple of like, just to make it kind of blend in, I'd put in some bigger scales here, like some visible scalage right above the eyes here. just so that kind of blends in, doesn't just look like a giant eyebrow on top of your T-Rex. Even though it kind of does look like an eyebrow, like you don't want it to stand out too much. So that's like how I would draw kind of the top there. And so yeah, let's move on to another very important part of our dinosaur, which is down here, which is the arms. So the arms are something that I think a lot of people kind of mess up on. So here we've got our basic, like, okay, two little arms here. You can add some wrinkles or some details, right? Let me just erase, grab my eraser and erase these little bits here. And then we can draw our little fingers. Basically, we'll have one finger that kind of goes like this, like so, and then another finger that goes like this. And so fingers are something that I think that a lot of people can't really draw very well. And so like I want to give a little bit of advice to that. Actually, I think these fingers are a little bit too skinny. I want to make them a bit fatter here. So actually, let me just redo that. So like I would say like one finger like this, and then one finger like so. And so one thing I would recommend doing when you're looking at a dinosaur is like just searching up what an arm, their arm really looks like. And so for a T-Rex, you're gonna notice here that I actually drew one of the fingers longer than the other one, right? So let me just do something real quick. So like, if you look at the arms of the T-Rex, right, you'll actually see that one of the fingers, this one right here, is actually longer than this one. If you were to search up like a T-Rex arm, you can kind of see that. And the reason behind that is actually that, you know, just like the T-Rex's ancestors, right, they would have had 3-fingered arms, like, you know, the earlier carnivores. But then they lost this digit right here. So then it ends up becoming like this. And basically what's happened here is that, so the middle finger is always the longest finger of a dinosaur. If you ever look at a dinosaur hand, you'll see that the middle finger is the longest one. And so what's happened here is that the middle finger here is the second finger right here, right? And so this middle finger is the same as this one. And so then you get a shorter finger here and a longer finger here. And so that's why when I'm drawing the T-Rex, I draw the bottom finger here slightly longer. It's not super noticeable just because the arms are so small, right? But, you know, I think it is an important thing to be able to observe. And so, yeah. Also, a tip for drawing fingers is that for dinosaur fingers, I like to think of them as like little cylinders, right? So like when I was drawing the T-Rex arm, it kind of looks like this. Like this is kind of what I was imagining. And then at the end of the finger, you have a claw. And how you draw the claw is that the claw isn't the same thickness as the full finger, right? So like if I were to draw a claw like this, and then I were just add the claw like that, that looks weird, right? That doesn't look right. And the reason behind that is the claw is kind of embedded within the flesh. And so if I were to draw like a T-Rex finger, what I would do is I would draw it like this, and then the claw you'll see is like on the top, and then you've got this little extra little bottom part here to kind of show that there's meat underneath the claw here. And so you can see that in my drawing, there's like a little bit of flesh kind of underneath the claw. The claw isn't just like a big thing just coming out of the end that's like the same thickness as the entire finger. Okay, and so now let's go look at the legs here. So legs, I would give pretty similar advice as like the arms. Legs, I would focus a little bit more on musculature. So you'll see here it's kind of like rounded over here, like so. Like, I'm not going to get into individual muscles just because this is a very, basic tutorial here. But basically, you've got this, like, big kind of thigh muscle coming out here, and then it goes backwards, and then you're left with your foot. It's kind of going to go like this. Okay, so now that I've drawn the leg here, gonna erase this middle line that I put just for proportions. And you'll see here, I've actually drawn the leg a little bit too long, so I'll shorten it a little bit. It's okay to be changing your proportions as you go if you realize that something looks a bit off. And then I'm gonna draw the foot. And the foot is something that I think, even more so than the hands, people mess up on a lot. So when we're looking at a foot, right, it's the same kind of concept as the hands of the T-Rex, right? So you've got like a finger, so you've got like a cylinder, and then you've got your claw on the end here. And remember that you've got this little meaty bit on the bottom. And so when you're looking at the side view of like a T-Rex foot claw, it's gonna look something like this, right? And then you would like erase this middle part, obviously. But because you have 3 different toes, it's kind of hard to do the toes. Especially in a side view, it's always going to look kind of weird. So I have 2 ways to do a side view. So either you put the foot at like a slight angle. So what you'd do is you'd have like 1 toe coming out like this, 1 toe coming out like this, and then 1 toe coming out straight out like that. So then your foot is gonna kind of, it's gonna give, like, you're kind of putting it at an angle, right? It's not like an actual side view, and so you can kind of draw your claws like so, and then and then it would look something like this, and then you can see, now you have your dinosaur foot, right? Or if you want to actually stick with the side view, what it would actually look like is basically the middle, again, just like the claws, or the hands, the middle claw is going to be the biggest one. And so we have a foot, we have like the middle claw, and then on the side, we'd have one of the smaller claws. And then the third claw would actually just be behind the middle claw, and you can't actually see it. And so like an actual like T-Rex foot side view would look something like this. And so one thing that you'll notice here is I'm actually like including this little line for like the kind of joints in the like, just like, see if you look at my finger here, right, you can see there's like these lines that come out when I, like you can see these lines. The same thing applies to like the foot of a T-Rex, so like I would include the little line here. Because the arms, when you're looking at them from the side, like you would be looking at it like this, right? You can't really see the lines from the top. But on the toes though, when you're looking at it like this, you can see the lines of the toes kind of come out like that. And so that's why I include the lines on the bottom of the toe there. And so here I'll just draw my toe real quick. So it's gonna look something like this. So you got 1 big toe in the front, right? And then you've got your smaller toe that kind of goes to the side like that. And then the foot is gonna, so it's gonna like come out a little bit and then go upwards like so. So you got this little like pad on the bottom of your foot. There, just so that you can see that. Okay. And so this is basically, and then I would just draw the other foot like this, and it's the same thing, right? You got 1 big toe in the middle, and then you got your smaller toe kind of coming out on the side here. And then you can do like that. Right? And I'll actually draw the other hand too, and it's gonna look something like this. You can just barely see the tips of the fingers poking out. Okay, And so now we have, like, I would say, like, a pretty decent looking dinosaur. Actually, I think the neck is, like, slightly too long, honestly. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna push this head a little bit backwards, just so that we can, like, keep with our proportions here. And so what we're gonna see here, it's gonna be like this. And then it's gonna go down like that, and that's the bottom jaw, and the top jaw is gonna look like this. It's gonna go up, and it's gonna go down. So then we have a little this going on here. Anyways, so yeah, I think that this looks a little bit better. Let me just change up some of this. Okay. So we'll just redo the head, actually, since I kind of messed up here pretty bad, I would say. So it's gonna look like that, and then this is gonna look like this, and then you have your eye is gonna be right, so above this little crack here. So it's gonna be like right here. One thing actually that I see a lot is that people put the eyes a little bit too low. The eyes are very, very high on the dinosaur's head, like almost at the top here, right? So you got this big gap, and then you would add your little kind of, I call them little eyebrow knobs, right? You'd add 1, 2, like so, and then you'd add your slightly bigger scales, just to kind of show, kind of outline the eyes a little bit and kind of blend in the eye knobs so they don't look so weird. So yeah. And so here, okay, so that's my new little skull here. And so now let's focus, now that we kind of have our baseline dinosaur down on the paper, what I would focus on now is like some smaller details. And so let's start with some wrinkles. So something that I realized pretty late on when I started drawing dinosaurs, the wrinkles really help your drawing like look a lot more detailed than it actually is. Like it gives like the viewer a kind of false sense, like, oh, this looks really, really good, even though like generally like these wrinkles are very, very simple. Like I'm just drawing these little lines here, right? But it kind of helps give the illusion of like detail that you didn't really put there, to be honest. And so basically the wrinkles behind the neck are going to follow the shape of the neck, so it's going to be like kind of a cylinder-y shape. And then as you go farther back down, it's going to turn the opposite way. It's going to go like this, like so. And then it's basically going to go like this, kind of all the way down around here and all the way down to the back. I don't want to waste my time making all these little wrinkles, but basically that's how they look. And then you got the little wrinkles around your arm, and then you've also got some bigger ones, I'd say up above the leg. Also, one thing I like to do with the leg is just add this little bit here, like this is like kind of skin connecting the leg to the body of the dinosaur, so it kind of makes it look more realistic. I like to add like a big kind of, I call it like a stomach wrinkle here, so it kind of looks like this. And then also like a little wrinkle that goes from the bottom jaw, kind of down the neck, down over here, like so. This is all just really giving your dinosaur a little bit of extra detailing and like making it look a bit more fancy, you might say. You can also add a little bit of wrinkling on the arms and legs, but I would limit that a little bit. You kind of usually have some like wrinkles on the knees here, and then also like you got a little line on the back here. I'm not gonna really add too much on the arms, I think, because they're pretty small. But yeah, okay. So now, like, okay, this is starting to look like a dinosaur. We're not done yet, but you know, you're starting to see kind of where this is going. And so now what I would do is I would add a little bit of shading. And so shading is important for giving your dinosaur a little bit of three-dimensionality. Like we've already done that a little bit with the wrinkles. Like you can kind of see like the shape of the dinosaur. Like the wrinkles are kind of outlining it a little bit. But what shading is going to do is really help make your dinosaur look more 3D. And so for like some basic shading, what I do here is, so first let's add that little fleshy bit. This is kind of, it's not really a lip, but it's kind of the bit in between the top and the bottom jaw that kind of comes out here. So I'd like to make that a little bit darker, kind of near like so. And then what I like to do is, so around the eyes, I would give it a little bit of shading. So like I would give it a little bit of like this treatment here. Because like I think the eyes are a little bit sunken into the skull, like so. So you kind of get a little bit more of a vibe. Here I would add a little bit of wrinkles. Don't add too many around the eyes, but just to give it a little more detail. I also sometimes add a little bit of shading, like here. You don't want to make our dinosaur look shrink-wrapped, like it's too hungry. Oh, I forgot to add the nose hole, so we'll add the little nose right there. But like there is like in the bones, you'll see there's a big kind of gap right there. But we don't want to go too extreme. We don't want to like make it look like our dinosaur is starving and, you know, like its bones are showing, because we want to make this look like a realistic dinosaur. And so now for the rest of the shading, I'd recommend just like the lower parts of the body, so like the bottom of the jaw here, you can give it a little bit of a little bit darker there. You can make the entire bottom of your dinosaur more dark, like so, just to give it because like we're assuming that the light is coming from the top here, and so basically the bottom is going to be darker. That's not like 100% true, but for now we're just going to assume that, because again, this is a very beginner tutorial. We don't want to go too deep into like how shading works. If you want to learn more about shading, I'm sure there's a ton of really good YouTube tutorials on how to shade properly. But for now, like, I would just recommend doing some basic shading. I'm gonna make these wrinkles a little bit darker so they stand out a little bit more. And so, like, you're gonna shade our entire bottom of our dinosaur like this. This is very simple shading. I wouldn't recommend shading like this. Generally, when you're shading, rules are, you know, either you shade like this, with like lines all going the same way. You don't want to scribble up and down like I was just doing there. You generally want to go like in one direction with lines, and then if you want to be, you know, make it a little bit extra, you can add more lines, so you can do like cross hatching, and you just add more lines in different directions, and then eventually it becomes darker. You can see like as I'm adding more lines in other directions, it's becoming darker and darker. But you never want to scribble back and forth like this. Like obviously I was just doing that because I was rushing. This is like a quick drawing, but yeah, generally you're supposed to shade kind of like this. Like you can already see it looks a lot better than what I was just doing, right? Like when you're always going in the same direction, kind of like so, it kind of, like, it just looks like 10 times better. Like, I'm just gonna be completely honest with you. So yeah. So basically now we've shaded the bottom of our dinosaur, so like, and you know, okay, now we're starting to get somewhere. We're starting to get a little bit of 3D shape. Now what I want to do is, first of all, I would darken all of our previous lines just to make them stand out a little bit more. I don't want any of them to be super light. So we're gonna darken our outline here. And we're going to darken our outline here, like so. And so now we're starting to get, okay, like this is the shape of a dinosaur. Like this is looking pretty decent already, I think. We're still gonna add some more details just to make it look better. One thing actually we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to the head and we're gonna look at the teeth. Because this is something there's I don't know if you know, but there's this debate going around on whether or not dinosaurs had lips. And so if you want to go the Jurassic Park route and not give your dinosaurs lips, yeah, I would bring out these long teeth that kind of look like this, right? And they're all sticking out like so. But personally, I like to draw my dinosaurs with lips. And so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to erase that. And basically, so for a dinosaur with lips, if its mouth is closed, you're not going to see any teeth sticking out. But if the mouth is open, I think the longer teeth will kind of stick out a tiny bit. So what you're going to do is you're going to choose a couple of teeth that are longer, and you're just going to make them stick out of the top like so. And so that gives you the kind of vibe of having lips. It'll kind of give you the impression that this dinosaur is lipped, right? Like not all the teeth are sticking out, only like the really long ones, like so. And one thing I would recommend about the teeth of a dinosaur is that when you draw teeth, they curve backwards like this. This is what a tooth of a dinosaur looks like. A lot of people will just draw their teeth like triangles like that. That's wrong. Don't do that. Like, make them curve backwards. It'll look a lot better if you make them curve, like, just a little bit. Not too much, obviously. But, like, if they're curving backwards, because that's just how dinosaur teeth are. It helps them, latch onto their prey. If the teeth are curved backwards, the prey can't get out of their mouth. And it's better than, like, a straight down triangle. And so here, okay, we have our head. What I like to do is I like to do a very light layer over the head, like a base layer, kind of, over the head, so we can kind of, get a nice sort of impression here. See, like, this looks a lot better with, like, this little base layer over all of it. So now it looks like that. That's great. And so we actually want to add this base layer over the entire body. And so I'm doing this very quickly, so I'm going back and forth. But again, generally speaking, if you're drawing quickly like I am, then yeah, you can go back and forth. But generally, I would not recommend going back and forth like this. Like, it will look a lot better if you stay going in the same direction the entire time. I'm kind of rushing this here because I don't want this video to be too long. But here, so now we have that. Personally, so now what we can do is, okay, so I already told you the bottom jaw, we're just gonna make it a little bit darker here. We're gonna give like a little bit of detailing here. It doesn't, you can just like add these little lines here. It'll just make it look a little bit more detailed. It's not really gonna do much for your drawing as a whole. But now you can see here, okay, we have a nice like dinosaur looking thing here. Now we just need to do the arms and the legs. That's our last part. So first of all, the arms and the legs, they cast shadows down. So like under the arm here, I'm gonna add a little shadow. And under the leg here, there's also a little bit of a shadow on both sides. So it's gonna be like this. And another thing is that, so the leg especially is 3D, right? So this, so let's say our light is kind of coming from this direction, right? That means that this back part of the leg is going to be darker over here on this side than the front part of the leg over here that's being hit directly by the light. Because the leg, you can think of it like a cylinder, right? So if I were to draw a cylinder like this, you can see if the light is coming from here, it's going to hit this front portion here, and this back portion is going to be darker, right? And so, okay, I drew that cylinder too high. Let me just try that again. So if I were to draw a cylinder, like right here, and our light were to come from this direction, then this back part is going to be darker, this front part is going to be lighter, because the light is going to hit this front part and not the back part. And so the same thing applies to our dinosaur leg here. So we're going to make the back of the dinosaur leg a little bit darker than the front. Again, I'm kind of scribbling here, but like you don't want to scribble when you're shading. That's just, it's a bad habit that I have. But yeah, I do want to finish this quick because I don't want this video to go on for too long. But basically, okay, I have our basic shape. You can see here I made the back a little bit darker than the front. And overall here, okay, there's our dinosaur leg. And I want this to kind of blend in with the rest of the body here, so I'll just go like that, right? Okay, now we have a leg. You can add some wrinkles on the leg if you want. That'll make it also blend in with the body better, just like so. Obviously, these are pretty bad wrinkles, but you know what I mean. And then now we have the back leg, and so for the back leg, what's happening here is that the back leg is going to be underneath the body, right? And so since we have our light coming from the top and kind of down, basically a shadow is going to be cast on this like inner part of the leg, right? So it's actually going to be darker than the front leg. And so when I'm drawing this part here, right, you can see how like just how much darker this kind of part of the leg is. So like so. Okay, it's gonna look like this. And also, like when we're talking about the foot, the bottom of the foot is obviously gonna be darker. So I like to make the bottoms a little bit darker than the top. Just a personal preference kind of thing. Okay. And so now you can see here, okay, we have this back leg that's darker. Since that is so dark, I'm actually gonna make this shadow here, like from the bottom of the dinosaur, a little bit darker as well, just so that it kind of doesn't seem so out of place. So like so, right? Then I'll kind of, you want everything to kind of blend together though. You don't want it you want contrast, but you also don't want it to feel out of place. So like, yeah, I want it to be kind of a gradient where it goes from like dark to like lighter on the top here, and I don't want like a strict like line. So you can see here, okay, now we have a more 3D kind of looking body. I'll just color in the arms. The arms I can't really put too much detail on just because they're so small, and this is a small drawing. It's kind of hard to tell, but this is a pretty small drawing from my angle here. So yeah, and so again, the back arm, these little arms, right, that are coming from the back are going to be darker than the front ones here. And then one thing about the claws is generally I make my claws black, so I'm just going to like press really hard with my pencil and just, you know, make the claws pure black like this. That kind of helps. You can add a little shine to them if you want, like add a little highlight. So like you can see here, I left a little bit of white space on it. It makes it kind of look shiny. I do that. It just kind of, you know, helps it look a little bit more 3D. You can color that part in if you want. It doesn't really matter too much. Again, this is a very basic dinosaur drawing, but here we go. And so yeah, this is like kind of how I would draw a dinosaur. You know, any extra advice? One thing I would recommend that I just kind of remembered and I forgot to talk about earlier is that you don't want your tail to be super like curly. Like a lot of the time when I used to draw dinosaurs, you know, I would draw them like, you know, I'd have a head and I'd have a body and I'd make the tail go like all over the place like this, like make it really like curved. But dinosaur tails do not have that kind of mobility. They're generally going to stay straight. Maybe they'll sway from side to side a little bit, but like they're going to be very straight tails. So you can see here, I didn't like curl this tail very much. Like, it's nothing like this, right? Like diplodocoids or something. So like the long-necked dinosaurs, some of them, they have very flexible tails. But like when we're talking about big theropods like T-Rex, they're not going to be able to move their tails very much. So that's why this tail here is just so stiff and it's not really moving. And so obviously, like, I could add a lot of extra detail to this T-Rex drawing here. Like, I could give it, like, a pattern, or I could give it a... There's a lot of different things. Actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna shade around the skull here, just to make it clear. Like, okay, here we have the skull, we have the top jaw, the bottom jaw, and you can kind of just shade around that, just to make sure that it's clear, it's distinct, from the rest of the head there. I like doing that. That just gives it a kind of extra bit of, I don't know, a punch, I suppose. Like, I could add, now, like, for skulls, I like to add more details with, like, scalage. Like, I just, like, add a little scales here and there. Skulls aren't, like, super wrinkly and stuff, so, like, you're not getting, like, this kind of wrinkly stuff. And so it kind of looks out of place, and so that's why I add, like, these little details to kind of, really, like, you can add some wrinkles, like, really doesn't really matter where, just like these little lines here, just like really give it some detail so that it doesn't look so, like, because before it kind of looked out of place, it was like smooth and weird, but now, like, by adding some scales, by adding like all these little things, that helps integrate it, I think, a little bit better with the rest of the body. And so here I just add a bunch of little wrinkles and stuff to the head just to make it look a little bit nicer. And so obviously, if you want a more detailed tutorial, maybe you can go somewhere else. But this is like very basic kind of dinosaur drawing tips, like with, you know, shading, make sure you get your proportions right, you know, how to draw the toes and whatnot. Yeah, anyways, I hope that you learned a little bit and that you'll be able to draw dinosaurs a little bit better now.